Welcome to Terror in Tandem, a podcast about finding entertainment in the macabre. Hosted by the knowledgeable and lovable Laura and Richard Mathiasen. Each episode, we discuss the horror genre, from books to film to TV and beyond. Sometimes, even from the beyond. You can find us online at terrorintandem.com and on Instagram at terrorintandem.
Hi.
Hello. Hello. Gleilig Yule.
Oh, right.
Almost.
Well, it can be.
Yeah.
It depends on when you listen to this. Maybe you're listening to it late in the season.
It's Christmas season.
It is.
It's holiday season.
It's holiday winter season.
There's so many good things going on.
It's cinnamon and nutmeg season.
Nut.
Wow.
Meg.
How old are you?
Old enough.
That's...
Old enough for nutmeg.
I think if you...
As the saying goes.
Isn't it if you, eat enough nutmeg, you'll hallucinate?
Yeah, no, so it like pure nutmeg, I think, is a deliriant. If you eat a bunch of it, not the fun kind, like you see demons and shit.
Oh.
Which for me is just, calling dad. So, what are we getting into today?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit more about seasonings of the season.
Let's do it.
So there's vanilla.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Cinnamon,
There are certain
clove,
flavors and odors that are very particular to this kind of time of year.
evergreen.
Pine,
I don't know if that's
like
a seasoning.
pine.
Yeah.
You're thinking pine, like
Yeah.
sap.
Yeah. Maple.
Yeah.
Although probably not a seasoning. It's a scent.
But there
It could be
there
a
are
seasoning.
smells.
It's
There
an
are smells as
enhancement.
well. Yeah. Maple is a flavor.
Yeah. It's a flavoring and seasonings of the seasonings.
Wonderful.
And nog. Whatever
What
that is.
nog?
I just think it's nutmeg.
I mean,
Eggnog.
I suppose
I think it's meant to make you pass out.
I could look it up, but
Because
are there
it's got
other
booze in it?
kinds of nog? I mean, there's eggnog, but
don't
is there
think so.
like almond nog?
No.
Or...
I mean, maybe like Erewhon, the bougie grocery store in LA,
Yeah.
has, flax milk,
Quinoa
almond
nog? Yeah.
nog.
Mm.
But,
Oat nog.
I doubt that it's really, the traditional is eggnog, which
Yeah.
if I'm going to be, can we have a Terror in Tandem confessional?
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Terror in Tandem Confessionals.
I have never sipped an eggnog in my life.
Can we open up this confessional booth to fit another person in there?
Yeah.
Me neither.
Like not even a sip.
Same.
I just never have been interested.
Have always.
I feel like I just don't like it.
No, listen. It looks like it looks like a sample from the elephant pen of a zoo. You know what I'm talking about? Like the consistency and the color of it remind me of things that I do not want to drink.
It looks like what I soak bread in to make French toast.
It just doesn't appeal to me at all. Like I've never wanted it or
it's
had
raw
it.
eggs. It's made with raw eggs.
Yeah.
It's
are probably people out there listening who love eggnog that are just like furious right now.
You can't even eat like the cookie dough that you've prepared before you cook it.
I mean, I drink several raw eggs a day before I go on a run and punch frozen meat for exercise. That was the movie, right? It's been a while.
Rocky?
Yeah.
Yeah. Eggnog it's known as a milk punch. First of all, that's
right off the bat. Milk punch.
It's got
who wants some milk punch?
Listen, not to yuck anybody's yums out there.
Yeah.
But we have never tried eggnog.
No.
But we have already decided we do not like eggnog.
And I understand.
But for those of you who are interested, it's made with eggs.
Nog.
Egg yolk, which I thought was part of eggs.
Eggs, yeah.
Sugar, milk, heavy cream, vanilla extract, and spiked with brandy and topped with grated nutmeg.
You know,
or
the other thing
cinnamon
is
sticks.
I'm not like a huge Brandy fan either.
I think she's a good singer.
Listen, as soon as I said it, I realized, yes, of course, obviously Brandy's amazing.
Just kidding.
But
I mean, she is. She's fine.
But the drink, it's like a I don't know. I think I just associate it with like my grandparents. And
Oh,
it's like
I guess it's supposed to be warmed first. So
I just never had it, and I don't want it, and I'm good.
you start by whisking egg yolks and sugar together in a small bowl. And then in a saucepan over medium-high heat, combine cream, milk, salt, nutmeg, and stir together until it simmers.
Yeah.
And then temper the eggs by adding small spoonfuls into the hot mixture.
I mean, it
just
probably
to
has,
prevent
like-
them from scrambling. And then you, once you combine it all together, you remove from heat, add from vanilla, and then refrigerate it. And then you add the alcohol upon serving.
Is this a cooking pot?
So it's like a custard. A
Again,
drinkable custard.
I'm not everything you're saying makes me want this less.
Yeah.
Milk punch,
You know what?
drinkable custard.
Milk punch, drinkable custard.
That's what we're calling eggnog from
milk
now on.
punch, boozy, drinkable custard.
Drinkable custard, milk punch, booze.
Well, one thing I did want to say about eggnog is
One thing.
it probably doesn't regurge well.
Yeah. No, I mean, imagine overindulging in eggnog. Yeah, that's gross. That is going to be, that's like baby vomit.
Ugh. So on our cooking podcast next week,
We don't normally, I just want to say that you and I, it's quite rare that both of us will like refuse to even try something. You especially you have a sophisticated palate. You're adventurous. I have the palate of a like a 5-year-old with gigantism. It's like basically I'm like ordering off the kids menu, but give me big boy portions of it.
before we move on though, I did want to talk a little bit
Should
about...
we move on, or should we just do this for like
No,
another 50 minutes?
I'm actually going to keep talking about eggnog.
Jesus
Sorry.
fucking Christ.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the etymology and origins of eggnog.
Of why you'd call anything you want someone else to drink nog.
So the first known use of the word nog was in 1693.
Ah,
It may stem from noggin, from Middle English,
yeah.
which is a small curved wooden mug used to serve alcohol. So that makes sense.
And
That you put an egg
how
drink
did
in your
noggin
nog.
become like a colloquialism for your head?
Because that's where you put everything
Oh,
to drink.
So that's somewhere along the line, a term for a mug of alcohol also meant your head,
And then
like the head on a beer.
British drink was called an egg flip, which was practice of flipping between two pitchers to mix something.
Okay.
And then the one dictionary lists the word eggnog as being an Americanism invented in 1765.
Well, that wasn't helpful. I'm still really...
Babson College professor Frederick Douglass Opie wrote that the term is a combination of two colonial slang words. Rum was referred to as grog, and bartenders served it in small wooden mugs called noggins.
That makes the most sense to me.
So it was essentially like grog noggins.
Why don't we call
Why
them
don't you have
grog-noggins?
yourself a spirited grog noggin?
Yeah.
I would probably eat a grog noggin before I drink a grog noggin before I would drink a
Eggnog?
eggnog.
Yeah. There's just something about it that it tells my like danger receptors in my brain no.
So nog just means strong ale. And a Maryland clergyman wrote a poem about the drink in 1775. And it wasn't published till 30 years after his death.
If more clergymen were just spending time writing like fun poems about their favorite drinks, I feel like I would go to church.
So this is some of the lines. Fog drams, I thee mourn, or better still, eggnog. At night hot suppings, and at midday grog, my palate can regale.
A priest wrote this.
Yeah.
About his favorite boozy Christmas drink.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like awesome.
So that's just a little insight into eggnog.
That was just
one of the many Christmas-themed horrors
Yeah.
that we're going to talk about in this episode.
Christmas time,
Listen
the
to that
scariest
segue.
time of year.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Christmas-themed horror movies today.
Which is a wonderful genre that has been around for a long, long time. And honestly, if you're looking back at the earliest depictions of Santa, it's always been horror. Santa has belonged to the horror hounds a lot longer than he's belonged to the Hallmark crowd.
So before we talk specifically about the man of Christmas, Santa Man,
it's Santaman.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about why and how Christmas horror has emerged.
Yeah, I mean
trope.
something we associate with joy and cheer and giving and whatnot. How did it become so intertwined with horror? I mean, every year there are batches and batches of horror movies that come out and are Christmas themed.
Although, so the movies and what we're going to talk about, films and things like that, Christmas horror is now considered a trope, from the 20th century. Before that, ghost stories were considered an English Christmas tradition.
Yeah.
People would sit around at Christmas time and tell ghost stories.
Tales of past glories and scary ghost stories, as the song goes.
Yeah, and they would talk about winter as a season of death and decay.
It is.
And then when Christ would come, new life.
Who?
It brings new life.
Oh.
As part of the, Christ's birth on Christmas.
Yeah, bringing new life in the verdant, warm month of January.
Shakespeare's A Winter's Tale, and Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, which is often recreated in many, many ways, is also a ghost story.
Oh, absolutely.
So they're both ghost stories.
Yeah.
Taking place in winter around the holidays, especially A Christmas Carol.
A Christmas Carol is also a time travel story because he goes to the past, he goes to the future.
Well, the ghost of Christmas yet to come is a specter of death.
And thank you for calling him that.
That's what
I know, but some people, you just colloquially, I feel like people call him the ghost of Christmas future.
Well, we're talking about Dickens. I'm not talking about, Scrooged here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Although Scrooge is such a great movie.
So the ghost of Christmas yet to come is death, and he shows Scrooge hell. Yeah.
No, he points with his skeletal finger.
And so
that scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Of course. Dickens took Christmas celebration and also shared an insight into misery that Christmas often brings. Because
absolutely.
Christmas isn't a happy occasion for everyone.
No, he talks about the poor houses and the orphanages and whatnot.
And when the ultimate message is when you see the misery, you can truly appreciate the joy.
Terror and Tandem fam, here's a little nugget into beloved co-host me. When I was a junior in high school, I had this amazing substitute teacher, Mr. Scarpinato. I love that guy. He was fantastic. And he encouraged us all to write, especially creative writing. And it was one of the earlier people that got me interested in stuff like that. And I wrote this long story called The Revenge of Tiny Tim. And it was all about basically what if Ebenezer Scrooge's, so-called epiphany and transformation was just staged so he could move in on Mrs. Cratchit and kind of cuckold the family. And Tiny Tim's the only one who knows what goes on and spends the rest of his life training and basically getting in Ebenezer's good graces and becoming his apprentice. And along the way, losing pieces of himself to becoming endeared to this man so that he can enact his revenge many years later. And I remember Mr. Scarpinato wrote a comment I didn't know what to think of this at first. And, I didn't know what to think of this at first is maybe one of the best editorial comments I've ever gotten on a piece of writing.
Oh, wow.
Because everything else was he was it was great. I loved it. But I didn't know what to think of this at first. And so I feel like what most people say when they meet me.
Yeah. And also after they've known you.
We can cut that whole thing.
No, I like that story.
Yeah. But
well, we could cut the part where you say cut it.
That was my version of my twisted version of A Christmas Carol.
Well, I remember watching, the black and white version in the 80s, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, do you have a favorite adaptation of A Christmas Carol?
I don't, honestly. It's not one of my favorite stories.
Okay.
But I would say if I had to pick one, then it would probably be the Muppets version.
Yeah, for sure. With Michael Caine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know there was one in 1938, right? Edwin Marin's version.
Sure. I mean, there have been 1,000. There's another one coming out this year.
But A Muppet's Christmas Carol is probably the best version for me.
I would agree. I also
the 1951 though, I think is probably closest to like a ghost scary one.
Yeah. It is a little scary. I like the George C. Scott version as well. And also the Disney one where Mickey is Bob Cratchit. And Ebenezer Scrooge is Uncle Scrooge.
Yeah.
But I that's probably the first version I saw, and I always liked it.
So for a long time, Christmas and ghost stories and tales of misery and death, and as a reflection on celebration of new life and what's going to come in the new year. A lot of people shed this year to embrace the next year. It's
sometimes
like a time of change.
The best way to confront darkness is to talk about it.
Yeah.
And tell stories about it, mythologize it or fantasize it so that it becomes something other than like your grueling reality.
But what we could now consider horror, holiday-themed horror, came about in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. I think as a response to the success of Halloween. Especially.
Well, no, actually.
You're right. Now that I think about it, you're right.
The first Christmas or holiday-themed horror came out of the UK called Whoever Slew
Auntie Roo with Shelley Winters.
From 1971.
A very weird classic.
Yeah, it has elements of Hansel and Gretel. Auntie Roo, played by Shelley Winters, she's like a witch, and it takes place during a Christmas party.
Yeah, and I remember that one.
It's essentially about fear of elderly women.
Which, as anybody who's ever been to Catholic school, like beloved co-host me, that's a real thing.
After that, Tales from the Crypt, 1972, became the first feature film to feature its killer in a Santa outfit, something that would become a standard of the subgenre in the segment and all through the house.
Yeah, that was an anthology film. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I forgot all about that. I'm loving that you're bringing these up. They're bringing back so many memories for me.
And then followed really right on the tails. So the tails, right on the Tales from the Crypt.
The coattails of tales?
Is Silent Night, Bloody Night from 1972.
That one I don't know.
It became the first theatrical Christmas horror film made in the U.S. and the first to make a play on holiday lingo with its main title.
Oh, right. Oh, then that's been done to death, like Santa's sleigh.
Yes. Later with Silent Night, Deadly Night,
1984.
But Silent Night, Bloody Night. So in the early 70s, there, each year essentially hit with one Christmas themed horror after another.
Interesting.
Before I get into the big one that really kicked off, I would say played a role in the slasher genre.
Some would argue.
And also coupled with John Carpenter's Halloween as another seasonal entry into the slasher genre. Why don't we take a break and then you can tell us a little bit more about Santa when we get back.
Oh, we're not going to jump into the movie? I'm like so...
I know, but we got to talk about Santa.
We do. All right, cliffhanger.
Feeling left out this holiday season? Christmas is hard for those with a taste for human flesh. Here at Hello Flesh, we understand that being outside the typical tastes of the season can be a challenge, which is why we're back with our special December meal delivery kit, especially created for the holidays. With the new Hello Flesh holiday kit, you'll get all the ingredients you need for a celebration fit for a cannibal king. Whether spending the holiday alone or hosting an intimate gathering, we've got you covered. Our continued promise at Hello Flesh is to provide you with only the freshest flesh, sinew, and soft tissue-based ingredients to satisfy your cannibal cravings. With a few additional seasonings and customized preparation guidelines, you'll not be left out in the cold foraging for a meal. New to the cannibal lifestyle? Try one of our transitional meal kits that blend animal and human meat-based products to allow for your metamorphosis to a fully cannibalistic lifestyle. So try Hello Flesh today. You won't be left unsatisfied. This is a fake ad for a fake product on a horror-themed podcast. We do not condone or endorse eating people. Delicious.
Wonderful. We just
That's got nothing on that eggnog.
downed
Oh,
a
so much eggnog.
barrel of
Ugh.
eggnog. Bitch. Oh, God. I am so nogged up right now.
Ugh, so much phlegm. I'm sorry. I just knocked off.
It just knocked off for a moment. So,
Yeah, let's talk
Yeah.
about, you wanted to talk
Listen.
about that demon,
you can't
that demon Satan.
you can't have
Santa.
Christmas without Santa.
Well, you can't have Satan without Santa.
Yes. It is an anagram. You're absolutely right. So
Before, we're going to talk about some holiday themed movies and ones that we really respond to, but you wanted to tell us all about that specific Santa demon.
I want to talk about some of the origins of Santa Claus himself. Yes. So apologies, as always, for my pronunciation. I mean no disrespect. So the one of the earliest depictions of Santa, and it comes from Finland. Finland also does claim Santa to be their own. So there's the Sami, indigenous Sami people of northern Finland, known as the Lapland. They had the myth of Julapukki, and Julapukki translates roughly to goat man. It was a goat, like an anthropomorphic goat creature that gave treats to good children and straight up murdered naughty children.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Kidnapped them, boiled them, did all
Did you
sorts
say
of...
boil?
Yeah, boiled them alive, shit like that. So Julapukki was sort of a complicated figure in mythology because he was created, it's in pagan myth, and we're talking like around the birth of Christ, that sort of time period. So, the stories of that time all had a kind of a dark edge to them. So yeah, Julapukki would travel around, and that's where we get, he wore red robes to stay warm.
Also,
and
the blood.
Rode a sleigh driven by reindeer, because reindeer are native to Finland and a staple of the country, and the Sami people depended on herds of reindeer for their living.
Wow.
And their existence. So this...
Do they still have any local traditions?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
To ward off his...
Julapukki?
Yeah.
Yes, the Sami people have traditions around that. It's also been popularized a bit in Finland, and in my favorite recommendation I'm going to be doing later, I'm going to get a bit more into that.
Okay.
So that kind of couples with the Christian story of Saint Nicholas of Myra, who was a Greek saint, lived in the 3rd century CE. He's the patron saint of, take a breath, sailors, merchants, archers, repentant thieves, children, brewers, pawnbrokers, unmarried people, and students.
Oh, that's a lot to
That is a lot, and
be patronage of.
imagine being like the patron saint of children, and then they're like, hey, also you get archers
And single women.
and thieves who feel bad about it. It's like, was he the last one in line? And they were like, here's all the shit that's left over, Nicholas. You were late again. So anyway, he was a real person from Greece, and he was quite famous for traveling around and just performing good deeds for people. One of the most famous stories of St. Nicholas was he rescued 3 women from slavery by paying their dowry, and then just let them go their way. He was often depicted riding a white horse. So that evolved into the Dutch myth of Sinterklaas. Now, Sinterklaas rode a white horse, and he carried a book that had all the deeds of good and naughty children of the world. So that's sort of where the Christian idea of like the Book of Judgment, that's where that plays in. So Saint Nicholas, Sinterklaas, it's all starts to mix together. Kind of like Halloween was a mixture of pagan tradition and Christian influence. That's what starts happening with Sinterklaas. Now, Sinterklaas travels around with the not at all problematic sidekick of Zwarte Piet, which is Black Peter. And Black Peter is a Moorish figure still to this day depicted in blackface. Can we move on from that, folks? So
We never have done it in the first place, folks.
Anyway, so Dutch immigrants brought the myth of Sinterklaas to New York, and in 1823, a poem was published in Troy, New York, which beloved co-hosts are very familiar with, by Clement Clark Moore. It was originally anonymous, but it's attributed to Clement Clark Moore, the academic and poet.
Pretty sure that's the birthplace of our primary music.
It is, yeah. And it was the birthplace of the poem A Visit from St. Nicholas, also known as The Night Before Christmas. Now, this is where the sort of modern, rosy-cheeked Santa Claus comes from. It's a mixture of Yolopuki, because you've got the reindeer, you've got the red robes, of St. Nicholas, because it's pretty Christian-themed. Right. And, the Sinterklaas, the Book of Judgment that he carries, the Book of Naughty Kids, and the idea of punishing children with coal, which is much nicer than what Sinterklaas and Zwarte Piet used to do, which was beat them with sticks.
Saint Nick, a.k.a. Santa Claus, has his own evil sidekick, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But
you're talking about Krampus.
I'm talking about Krampus.
Yes, and Krampus, by the way, we should say we are recording this on Krampusnacht Eve.
Yes, because it's December 5th.
December 5th is the feast of Krampusnacht, Night of Krampus. And that's celebrated in Germany and in other countries as well, but it originated there. And Krampus's origins are sort of hazy, but yeah, he's like Santa's dark minion. He's a goat-like creature, much like Yolopuki. And his job is to punish the naughty children by beating them with sticks.
He visits houses with Saint Nick. Saint Nick is supposed to put candy in the shoes of the good kids and birch twigs in the shoes of the bad. And then Krampus goes and grabs those misbehaved children and beats them with those birch branches and stuffs them into his sack and hauls them off to his lair to be tortured or eaten. Yeah.
For like talking back to your parents.
Or fighting with your sibling.
Yeah, exactly. Staying out too late. So, we love Krampus here at the Terror in Tandem luxury property compounds. And happy, a blessed Krampusnacht Eve to you. So I mean, listen, like all Disney-fied, Hallmark type stories we tell ourselves today, Santa Claus has a very dark, very old origin, and I love it. So honestly, it's no surprise to me that so many Christmas horror movies come around, because it is a season filled with the coldest, darkest days of the year, with the anxiety and stress of holidays, and Santa's always been, from his earliest days, half monster.
It's always weird, because what I remember about going to see Santa, like at the mall,
right,
is feeling the like bones, the bony leg of the person in the Santa suit as
Of
I
the
was
weird
propped on the lap.
rando that
Because
whose lap you're sitting on.
That
Yeah.
outfit is very thin.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you would be sitting on
some old man's penis.
not necessarily
No,
an
you're-
old man, but just
You're grinding on
stranger.
some like strange
Ew.
dude's lap. I know the whole tradition
well,
of
do you
putting
see
your
those
child.
pictures of kids that are screaming and
Those are my fucking
terrified?
favorite.
Those are like
My
kids in the know. They're like
those are kids that I deeply empathize with.
yeah.
Because yes, what the hell tradition is this? You're putting your kid on some weird guy's lap, and listen, no offense. No, actually, offense. It's a mall Santa. Why? Why are you putting your kid? It's amazing. Here, sit on this stranger's lap. Tell him what you want.
Well, it's a tradition.
But like most
I'm
traditions,
telling you, as an adult,
we've
I
held on to
still
it for too long.
remember feeling the bony legs
Ew.
of the person
Ew.
whose lap I had to sit
on your butt cheeks.
Right.
Oh, your little butt.
Oh, God. Weird.
It's terrible.
So the emergence of holiday theme horror after, the early 70s really came to be with the slasher film. Also, some would argue that it was the first slasher. Black Christmas.
Yes. Directed by Bob Clark, who had another major contribution to Christmas cinema.
Which is very different, and it's called A Christmas Story.
Yeah, it's even scarier.
Yeah, so Black Christmas is called, known as one of the earliest slasher movies.
It's so good.
Preceding Halloween. Bob Clark is Canadian, so the entirety of the film was filmed in Toronto.
Yes, it's a Canadian movie.
It's really... It was inspired by the urban legend, The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. It follows a group of sorority sisters, played primarily by Olivia Hussey.
Yes, and here's another nugget about beloved co-host me. My very first on-screen crush. Actually, no, that was Kim Basinger in Batman 1989, but Olivia Hussey was an early crush of yours truly. I mean, she was in Jesus of Nazareth and Romeo and Juliet. It was a confusing time.
So Olivia Hussey, Lynn Griffin, and Margot Kidder as the boozy, back-talking,
Margot Kidder
sassy.
essentially playing a version of Margot Kidder.
Yeah. So they receive these obscene phone calls, and they're picked off one by one inside the sorority house. And what's really interesting about this movie is there is an extraordinary amount of tension.
Yes.
There's very little blood.
It's not a gory
gore.
movie. There is violence.
You can't see the killer ever.
You
never fully see the killer,
but there's a
you
lot
do
of
see it from his
psychological elements.
perspective.
Yeah, and there's
which is different because you're basically you become it's that point of view from the stalker's point of view, even as far as it almost looks like when you're going up the stairs, it's sort of like you're walking up the stairs because that's the perspective.
Well, that was a technique that had been previously used in what many consider to be the first slasher ever filmed, Peeping Tom.
Oh, right.
Had the POV of the killer, which erases the barrier between the audience and the antagonist and made people at the time extremely uncomfortable because it in a way forces you to be complicit in these acts because you're viewing it almost as a passenger and you can't stop it. It's almost like you're part of it in a way. Audiences at the time did not like that in Peeping Tom. Right.
And the ending of the film is something that, I don't think it had really been done. Up until that point,
no, it's very cool.
We see Olivia Hussey basically in an induced coma, while the dead bodies of the house mother and the first sorority sister that was killed in the attic, and it pans out at the end of the film where the police are doing all their business downstairs.
Yeah.
And you can see like this weird, like shadowy reflection that you have no idea what it is, but it's one of the victims with a bag over her
Yep,
face.
the one in the attic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's not. So what happens in this movie? It's from 1974, so like no spoiler alerts at this point.
We've actually talked about Black Christmas in another movie in our slasher episode.
So what happens is there's two simultaneous killing sets. One is happening outside of the house. There's a woman that's found in the park, murdered. There's talks about one of the girls that lives down the road was nearly raped. And so there's already a killer
and
out
this
there.
is like a bucolic New England college town.
It's very Christmas, like it's
snowing
sort of,
throughout most of the movie.
Yeah, the visuals are just a very regular Christmas almost.
Yeah, it's a very Norman Rockwell kind of postcard look to it.
So what you come to find out is Olivia Hussey is pregnant with her professor's baby, and the professor is the outside killer, allegedly. We don't truly know, but we think because Olivia Hussey does end up murdering him.
Yeah.
In the basement. But the inside killer is the one that is not caught. The one whose point of view we are with. The one who is taking the sorority girls one by one. And the one who at the end is having like a little bit of a conversation in the attic as we pan away.
Yeah.
So we never truly catch that killer, and we leave Olivia Hussey's induced coma's body in the house alone.
Yeah.
While the cops are downstairs outside.
It's a surprisingly dark movie.
It is a very dark movie, and it is one of my favorite,
it's
Christmas
a great
themed horror
movie.
movies.
It's absolutely worth a watch. It's a classic.
What is not worth your watch is the other iterations of Christmas.
Ruh-roh.
I think there's one from
2006. Yeah,
2019.
There's
called
one
Black
with 2006
Xmas.
is with Imogen Poots.
Yeah.
I think.
Don't watch those. They ruin the whole aesthetic of the original.
Or is she in the newest one? Anyway, whatever. They all kind of mix together. They're not good. They're not great.
So definitely check that one out because it is a quintessential slasher and quintessential Halloween-themed horror.
Christmas.
What did I say?
You said Halloween.
Christmas. It is a quintessential Christmas-themed horror.
Love it. Can I talk about a movie?
I guess.
It's one that you and I recently watched. And it is, it's a real experience. It is 2017's Anna and the Apocalypse, coming from Scotland, director John McPhail.
Wow.
So this movie is a musical, teenage, comedy, horror, drama, coming-of-age apocalypse movie.
I would also say it's like if Glee made a holiday movie, if Shaun of the Dead came on set, and a Hallmark channel.
Like if Gen Z Rent had zombies.
No, it wasn't.
It was
that sad.
It was pretty sad.
It wasn't that sad, though.
So listen. Anyway, what this movie is,
a millennial Rocky Horror Picture.
Yeah, it's a straight up musical. Now it starts off following Anna, who is about to graduate. She's lost. You find out she's lost her mother. She's living with her father. She often clashes with. He also works at the school that she goes to. They're fighting because she wants to travel and he wants her to follow a more traditional path. So it really starts off like a Hallmark movie. It sets up all of the classic tropes of like the best the best friend who's the nice guy and he's in love with Anna but he'll never be more than a friend. And then there's the other couple that's with them that's like super cute.
Yeah, then, it starts out like a regular teen musical holiday comedy.
Yeah. And it's done so earnestly. Musical? The music's great. The lyrics are great. The lyrics
the music is great, and they're all really good singers and performers.
Yes, everyone's great. The choreography is excellent. The lyrics are surprisingly incisive and relevant to the traumas of Gen Z and I guess 2017 maybe like the last millennials.
Yeah.
That sounds like a horror movie, The Last Millennial.
Mm-hmm.
Even with The Last Millennial,
Trademark.
he'll still be working for a baby boomer. It'll be like 190 years old, never quitting. So the thing is about Anna and the Apocalypse, like I said, it's fun, it's goofy, it is, but it does have pathos to it. You really do care for these characters. It goes deeply into, I think, what kiddos nowadays are going through and the things they have to face, the challenges that confront them. It's very earnestly done. Mm-hmm. Now, basically what happens is a zombie apocalypse during the Christmas season, right before they're going to do the Christmas pageant at school, or the Christmas talent show. And the best part of this movie is it is over the top bananas violent.
Yes.
It's
very
like
Gallagher-esque.
Think like early Peter Jackson movies, Evil Dead.
Sloshing. Yeah,
just like
liquidy.
Heads popping off and like sprays of blood.
Like interesting kill moments.
So it's hilarious because, it's a musical and they're killing zombies largely using like Christmas decorations, like bashing them with giant candy canes and things like that. Now, a lot like Shaun of the Dead, it is surprisingly heartfelt and has moments of genuine sadness. And this movie, it's not. I mean, it has moments of like exuberance, but I can't call it a happy movie.
No, I mean,
it's kind of dark.
Do you like musicals? Do you like being sad? And do you like, like B-type violence?
Yes to all three of those things.
If yes, then you will like this movie.
I did. I
know
really
you
liked
did.
it.
Very much so.
I really liked it. It's you're right. It does fit a particular niche, but I think one that might appeal to our listener. Anna and the Apocalypse. It's certainly a ride. You're not going to watch another movie like it, and I think for that alone, it's worth a watch. But it is genuinely very good.
I'm going to talk a little bit about a movie that a lot of people associate with Christmas, and they probably watch it every Christmas. It's a horror comedy called Gremlins.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
It's a straight up Christmas movie.
It's 1984's Gremlins, starring Phoebe Cates, Zach Galligan,
Judd
directed
Nelson.
by, I mean, it's got Corey Feldman.
Like everybody's in it. Yeah.
And it's directed by Joe Dante.
Yes.
And, I mean, it's a quintessential 80s movie, A. B, it's Amblin, which that was, it's Steven Spielberg. Amblin, it's got that visual. It's got that vibe.
It's got the vibe. Yeah, it's got that adventurous, funny, but also like violent.
Dark.
Yeah, and kind of
sinister.
Dark. Yeah.
And, the cute and furry Mogwai.
Yes, Gizmo.
The cute and furry Mogwai. Gizmo especially. He's our favorite.
Yeah, well, the hero.
But the gremlin aspect of it, we start to hear about the legend of the Mogwai and how to prevent them from turning into gremlins.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing, is it comes with some very particular rules.
Yes. And then the rules are broken very quickly.
Like instantly. The first night.
And the horror aspect, there's a gremlin in the microwave exploding like with guts and goo.
Oh, the blender?
Well, the microwave, the blender,
and just how they reproduce is gross.
Phoebe Cates' dad is dressed up as Santa and breaks his neck and dies inside the chimney.
Yeah, that gives her like a lifelong
trauma,
PTSD about Christmas. That is honestly, when I say it out loud, sounds horrifying, but in the movie, it's somehow funny.
So a lot of the takeaways, I would say, from an adult perspective. So, this came out in the mid 80s. So I would watch this with adults. Their perspective is Billy isn't responsible enough for a pet.
Oh, I have a very different perspective.
Well, you weren't a parent.
No.
Watching this movie.
No, I know.
That's why.
It's interesting.
So the parents would be like, okay, well, Billy can't handle the responsibility of a pet. And
it's like, why a shitty parent refuses their kid a pet? You can't handle it.
Filmmaker John Landis said that the Gremlins represented Americans, like an American society, unchecked and driven by consumer habits and insatiable appetites.
Jonathan Landis,
that if fed will turn into monsters.
And he would know.
And alternatively, the film can also be seen as a story of how Americans take things from other cultures, culturally appropriate things, and refuse to care for them in the way in which they were instructed to do so, to maintain the tradition and, history of the item.
That was exactly, even as a kid, that was my takeaway from it, because he gets it. So the Mogwai is obtained by, this white baby boomer salesman, capitalist guy from an old Chinese mystic in a curio shop. And the man tells him very specifically how to care for this creature. And the guy
rules.
is dismissive, like from the very beginning. He's basically like, yeah, fine. How much? Money.
Yeah.
And then
immediately sells
and like
the Mogwai.
At the end, brings him back. And, hat in hand saying like, you were right, I'm sorry. But the other way I viewed this was, why the fuck would you give this thing to your dumb teenage son? Like, the way this thing is described is like...
There's only 3 rules, and they're all broken.
But they're intense.
Never expose to sunlight, never get them wet, and never, ever, ever,
ever
feed after midnight.
Those are actually the same 3 rules for me.
Yeah, but those don't do anything.
I know. Every day I have to
those
shove
are just your
other Richards into microwaves.
Rules. You're like, I can't go out in the sun.
Don't get me wet.
So that it actually, the film was massively successful and continues to be like a beloved Christmas classic.
It's so rewatchable.
It is. It had a little controversy for violence.
Yeah.
Which eventually led to the creation of the PG-13 rating of the MPAA system.
It's one of the movies that contributed to that. I think Red
Steven
Dawn
Spielberg was the one that suggested that.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. There is a gulf between PG and R.
Yeah.
It's another one of those wonderful movies that your parents let you watch as a kid, and it's maybe just a little too intense for that, but it's a good gateway horror.
Yeah, but it does. That has like a Christmas darkness imprint on me. So now I affiliate.
Thanks, Joe Dante.
A little bit of Christmas and horror together because of Gremlins.
I mean, Joe Dante's a legend. When we do our werewolf episode, we'll be revisiting Joe Dante for sure. Oh, did I spoil something? We're going to do werewolves at some point. My turn?
Yeah.
All right. My next one is another one that I want you to join me in discussing because we watched it together and I know you liked it just as much as I did.
I did. Better Watch Out.
Better Watch Out from director Chris Peckover, coming 2016. This movie, now I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, and there's a reason for that.
You got to watch it.
Go into this movie knowing as little as possible. Trust me. Now, the basic premise of it is a young woman is babysitting for a 12-year-old boy on Christmas Eve. Everything goes fine until...
In the suburbs.
In like wealthy.
Very safe, beautiful house.
Yeah, upper middle class type
Total
yuppie.
like Christmas holiday, just babysitting,
it
normal night.
It looks like Clark Griswold's house, like that kind of thing. So everything is normal, everything is fine. Then intruders break into the house and all hell breaks loose. And there's a big subversion that is enormously entertaining.
It's sort of like, what type of babysitter are you when confronted by home intruders that are terrorizing the kid that you're in charge of babysitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, I would say,
That's part of it.
The initial theme.
That's part of it, and I want you to stop right there.
I am stopping
any more
right
than
there.
that. So listen, this is a blast. This movie is one that you don't see coming. It constantly and delightfully subverts your expectations. It's one that is it's one of those movies that it's a ride.
Yeah.
It's a rousing movie. Olivia de Jong, who you might recognize from The Staircase, is the babysitter. She's a great lead. Levi Miller plays the kid she's babysitting. And
Dacre Montgomery is in it.
Yeah, a pre-Stranger Things Dacre Montgomery is in it. It's a darkly funny, quite violent, and
not funny, not funny.
No, it's dark
also
humor.
Yeah.
I would qualify this as a horror comedy, but it's such a blast. It's just so,
it's
and
really
it's so
great.
Satisfying.
Yeah, because I wouldn't read anything about it. I would just trust us and watch it.
Yeah.
You won't be sorry.
No.
This is a really great film, regardless of the holiday theme in the background.
Yeah, it works on its own
It's
merits.
a good, surprising, wonderful, delightful.
It is very, very
horror
much
movie.
a Christmas movie.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's all Christmas throughout. But better watch out. 2016. I honestly can't recommend it enough, but really
Same.
do yourself a favor and just watch it. That's
I
it.
second it.
Don't Google it, just watch it.
The last film that I want to talk about, I'm just going to talk about it. It's not necessarily a recommendation. It's
Okay.
just I want to discuss it. And we had talked about Silent Night, Bloody Night from the 70s, but I want to talk about Silent Night, Deadly Night from the 80s.
Yeah.
So
sure. I mean, you kind of have to.
Yeah.
1984, I think, is the first one.
Yes. And that's the only one I'm really going to talk about here.
Okay.
There are, I think, 6 iterations.
There are 5 main ones. Then there was a semi-remake in 2012 with Malcolm McDowell. And I think there was talk of another reboot, but I'm not sure if it was ever released.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where there's one movie, then the second and third tangentially have to do with the first movie, but the fourth and fifth are completely unrelated.
Right.
It's like utter fucking garbage.
It's called a psychological slasher, and it's directed by Charles Edward Sellier Jr. He also did the life and times of Grizzly Adams.
No kidding.
He did.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That,
which I used to love Grizzly Adams.
I
Just
mean,
a side note.
Listen, sometimes you take jobs. That's
So,
amazing.
What really made this film imprint was the marketing strategy
Which
of the film.
was quite controversial.
Yes, it received a lot of backlash, and it was basically Santa Claus dressed as a killer, and
With a bloody axe.
the tagline was, "You've made it through Halloween, now try and survive Christmas."
Yep.
So it made it seem like it was part of the Halloween.
Well, the poster itself was an image of a chimney with
Yes.
Santa's arm coming out of it holding an axe that was spattered with gore. So the assumption is Santa is coming out of this house having just butchered
Murdered
the
everybody.
family. Yeah.
There's ice dripping down from the chimney.
It's honestly,
The Deadly Night part.
the
of
poster is one of the better
bleeding.
things of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's part of why I loved it so much. The later tagline, so they did eventually change the tagline to "Shocking, Disturbing," the movie they tried to ban,
They
which
did.
gave them a counterculture edge that drew the audiences to come and see it.
This is something that censor-happy dipshits never seem to quite understand, is when you ban things and make a big fucking deal about them, it popularizes them. So keep doing it.
So the
Go
film
ahead.
is essentially about Billy, who witnessed his parents killed by a robber in a Santa suit.
Yeah.
And he was raised in a strictly Catholic orphanage and placed at a job in a toy store when he's old enough to work.
An abusive orphanage.
Yes.
They abuse
Oh,
the
yes.
shit out of him. Yeah. This movie has everything.
So what is different about this movie is it's not you seeing the protagonist, a group of young protagonists being picked off one by one.
Yeah, it's not like
it
Friday
takes
the
the
13th.
place of Billy, the protagonist, played by Robert Bryan Wilson. And he's trying to always be good.
Yeah,
but
he's
when
a bit
Santa
sympathetic.
appears everywhere, his PTSD and trauma reaction just doesn't stop. And it penetrates so deep that he decides to go on a killing spree in a Santa suit. And he like says things like, "You're naughty," to all the people as he beheads them with an axe.
He does.
And impales antlers.
It's not a great movie
on people.
But the first one, it's not terrible, honestly. It's interesting to me because for a lot of the movie, you're following this deeply traumatized, innocent person as they break with reality.
Yes.
And then the rest of the movie, you're following them as they hack people to death with axe and spew out Christmas puns. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not
I
the
said
worst
it's
thing
not
ever.
a recommendation as much as it is I wanted to talk about it.
I want to talk a tiny, tiny bit about the sequel.
Well, I want to just mention one more thing, that the PTA wanted to have the film removed from local theaters because parents complained that TV spots made their children be really, really afraid of Santa Claus. So the film's distributor, TriStar, tried to pull ads after its release and slowly started to remove the film from theaters. And film critics like Leonard Maltin and Roger Ebert, Gene Siskel, condemned the movie, reading out the names of the production crew on air and repeatedly saying, "Shame on you."
Ew. What a bunch of fucks those guys were. I mean, honestly, listen, blah, 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 blah. Their reviews, I don't know if our younger viewers even know who they are, listeners even know who they are, but they were so snobbish, especially against genre films, to the point where they would express their offense at having been subjected to these movies. It's like, motherfucker, that's your job, for one thing. Nobody making you do this. And also, your job is watching movies. So, like, take it down a notch.
So just for the marketing controversy, the critical controversy alone, and how it struck fear in many children about Santa just because of the commercials, I think is definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, it's trash. It's exploitation, but it's not. It's for what it is. It's okay. Now, hard pivot in the sequel, Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. Now, the second and third movie deal with his brother Ricky, Billy's brother Ricky, who also becomes a serial killer for some reason. Now, Ricky's not really mentioned in the first movie. He just sort of appears.
I mean, he's at an orphanage. He's the only one to witness. There was never any kid
Yeah,
in the first one.
But in the second movie, he's got a fucking brother named Ricky. And anyway, it's gained notoriety over the years, mostly because it's maybe one of the worst movies ever made. And the guy who plays Ricky makes some decisions. I think anyone who's familiar with the movie is probably familiar with the Garbage Day scene where he just sort of rampages through his neighborhood with a gun and yells, "Garbage Day!" before shooting someone. I actually recently rewatched that scene. I mean, I saw this movie years and years ago. I rewatched that scene because I remembered that, and I'm going to level with you. It was hilarious the first time I saw it, but watching a white guy rampage through a neighborhood with a gun isn't fucking funny to me anymore. It just isn't. It isn't.
I don't know if it was ever really funny.
In 1987, it wasn't happening every day of the week. So, anyway, Silent Night, Deadly Night went on, as we mentioned, to, I think the third movie had a psychic in it.
I think it goes to 5.
It goes to 5. And then in 2012, Malcolm McDowell starred in a sort of reboot that
with a gun-toting
was also critically
Santa.
panned, but I haven't seen that one, so I can't speak to it.
So do you want to talk about the last entry?
Yes, I do. And this movie is oh gosh,
to wrap it back around to the evil
but I'm going to end this on
Saint
a high note, though, on a real high note, because this movie's been on my list since it came out. For whatever reason, I just never got around to it until this year. And what a shame, because it is already on one viewing entered my perennial Christmas watch list. This is a classic. I'm obviously talking about 2010's Rare Exports, A Christmas Tale, coming from Finland, and Finnish director Jalmari Helander. Now, oh my God, this movie is so good. It is fantastic. It's a rousing, cheering, wonderful movie. So it stars a young boy named Pietari, played by Oni Tomila. Now, he lives in the Lapland region of Finland, which is the northernmost part of Finland, right on the border with Russia. He lives with his father, played by Jorma Tomila, who always plays a badass in movies. And in this movie, he's a grieving widow who's struggling to raise his son, who is very different. Now, Pietari is quirky. He's clever. He's obsessed with the origin of Joulupuki and Santa, because he thinks that the mountain they live near is where he's from. And he knows all the Sami indigenous myths around Santa. So anyway, there's this mining company that is blasting and excavating in the mountain, looking for something. And,
looking for the real Santa.
Looking for the real Santa. And so this small village that lives a subsistence life living that really centers around the migration of reindeer. This year, all of the reindeer, they find them slaughtered in a field and eaten and eviscerated. Something is coming out of the mountain. The mining crew, they go up there to investigate. The mining crew is missing. There's signs of violence. Basically, long story short, they find what they think is Santa. And it's this dirty, disgusting, old man looking thing.
Sounds like Santa to me.
It's one of his elves.
Ew.
Yeah. So they listen. The real Santa is. I'm not going to give it away, but it is quite a far cry from what you see on a can of Coca-Cola at Christmas. It's quite monstrous. It's much closer to the goat, creature. But anyway, Pietari is an all-time hero. He is brave. He's the only one who really knows what's going on. He keeps trying to convince everybody of what's happening. No one listens to him. He's dismissed. He's talked down to. He's not very strong. Everybody makes fun of him. But when Pietari has finally had enough and he takes charge, it is so great. He is a selfless, brave little kid, and you just end up cheering for him.
It's essentially he discovers the real Santa,
yes.
And it's not the rosy-cheeked one that everybody's comfortable with.
It's a movie with a lot of heart. It's also a beautiful relationship between a father and son.
And the real father and son.
That I was going to get to that. Yeah, actually, in real life, Pietari and his father in the movie are real life father and son.
That's adorable.
Now, this movie was made by Jalmari Helander, who is this is a whole family operation. His brother wrote the movie. He is brother-in-law with Jorma Tomila. So his Pietari is played by his nephew. Now, I don't mean any of that to mean anything. Everyone is fantastic. They deserve to be in this movie. The performances are great. But it's just, I didn't know that when I was watching the movie, and finding out that half the cast is related to each other. It was wonderful. And the thing about this movie is it's got a very small cast, not a single woman in this movie. Not one. And it gives a sense of a dying village that is very lonely. The only real mention of a woman is Pietari's deceased mother, and you don't really find out what happened to her. But what you get from the absence of women in this movie is these sort of bumbling, lonely, rough and tumble men that consistently make bad and rash decisions. And it pervades the movie with a sense of sadness, that there's something missing.
Interesting.
Now, the movie it's definitely a dark comedy, and it's filled with that bone dry Nordic humor where it's like, are they joking? right up until the epilogue of the movie, which had me absolutely roaring with laughter. It has the epilogue to this movie I did not see coming and had me just gut busted. It's a classic, rare exports. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Everyone should watch it. It's
I just want to say
it's violent, so maybe not great for kids, but
I just want to say that if you do a quick Showtime search, often this movie is playing in theaters, and in Massachusetts on December 23rd, it's playing at the Coolidge Corner Theater. So if you are in Brookline, Mass, you can go and see it on the big screen.
Brookline.
And check your own local
Just don't
listings,
say you're from Boston.
And you probably will find Rare Exports playing at one of your local theaters.
I am so happy to hear that, because it certainly deserves a place in the modern pantheon of horror Christmas classics. I think put it right in there with Gremlins. It's one you can watch every year, and it's a real blast. Excellent.
Well, whatever holiday movie you decide to cozy up with while
Feliz Navidad,
Santa
everybody.
Or a traumatized orphan murders through a home this wonderfully warm holiday season, get your curdled cup of eggnog.
Yeah. If
enjoy.
Like us, you wonder what kind of man enters your home in the middle of the night to leave your children weird presents like a rocking horse or something. Yeah, you're welcome.
Leave those cookies out for Santa.
Yeah, or Krampus will get you with his sticks. Watch out for birch reeds in your shoes, everybody.
If you get birch reeds in your shoes, you better lock the door.
And honestly, Svarte Piet, you are canceled. I'm just calling it.
Bye,
Merry Christmas,
everyone.
everybody.
Terror in Tandem is written, produced, and recorded by Laura and Richard Mathiasen, and edited and mixed by Richard Mathiasen. Our theme was written and performed by Carrie Denver, and all other music was written and performed by David Suspanic. All opinions expressed on this podcast are our own and should be taken as such. Thanks for listening, and please remember to give us a like, a review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. We're still